So today we have Simon Sultana, who is going to talk to us about Pogil. So I will let him introduce himself more, and I'm really excited learning about this.
I'm Simon Sultana. I'm here at Reedley as a computer science instructor. And Lori asked if I would share a kind of just a short activity slash workshop on Pogil, which is a learning approach, teaching learning approach that I've been using for probably the better part of 10 years, to some extent. Um, I was actually fortunate enough to go and go to an actual Pogil workshop where we're with real instructors that were much more versed than I am where they offered this couple day course um, on learning about Pogil and utilizing it in the classroom. Um, and then was able to then bring that into my classroom to various degrees in different classes and have utilized it significantly since then. And I've gone to a couple more pre-conference workshops and Pogil and things like that, and did a an activity writing camp one summer that was virtual, where we wrote Pogil exercises and such. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Pogil, just very little, um, and try to mimic basically what you would experience in a Pogil classroom. And we'll do that, here in the online realm, which, a lot of people got exposure to start doing a few years ago, when we were all learning and teaching remotely. So I'll utilize a breakout room if I can do that here, and then have you. I don't know what the numbers we have. We have two, four, five. I don't know, Lori. I don't know if you're participating, but we don't have enough for two groups. Unfortunately, we would need six to have two groups, but we could just do one large group. So I'll just say a few words about Pogil. I'll share my screen here, and then I'm going to have you learn about Pogil by actually doing it, okay, to some extent, and then we can talk a little bit about after. So hopefully this will whet your appetite enough so that you will, maybe look into it more and maybe pursue it as something for your classroom. Can you see my slide there? Okay, excellent. So basically, Pogil is the idea is for it to be student-centered, right? So it's getting away from the whole sage on the stage, as I ramble on here, and, moving away from, lecture, and having students learn by inquiry. So the idea is to have students learn and work together, and that's what we'll be looking at here. So um, what is Pogil? It's process oriented. It's got there are three key aspects here. So first one is process oriented. It's focused on developing special skills, these essential skills that hiring managers tell us that they're very interested in students having. So not just the content knowledge, right, for the discipline, but things like communication, problem solving, critical thinking, right? So the idea is to utilize to have an opportunity for students to develop those skills in addition, to learning about the content that we're teaching. The second part is guided inquiry. So students are given activities to guide them towards discovering new concepts and deepen their understanding. So this is similar to inquiry-based learning, and that's often used in science courses. And I heard Jay mention, I think he teaches chemistry. And by the way, I'm pretty sure that Pogil got its start in chemistry and teaching chemistry, actually. And then the final piece is the student-centered aspect. So the instructor here is acting more as a facilitator, and the students are learning collaboratively, and the instructor is there to guide them to make sure that learning is happening the way it should be. Okay, so when we're talking about inquiry, learning by inquiry is, we're posing questions. We look at a model, for example, or a problem or a scenario, and then we start asking questions or answer what are presented as guided questions to build the learning. All right. And it's again guided inquiry in the fact that the instructor is providing these research questions and students are designing and following procedures to test and to test the question and then communicate their findings. Okay. Actually, it's biology and chemistry that Pogil really got its start. So it was definitely in the sciences. So we're looking at cooperative and collaborative learning, right? It's definitely activity focused. Students are proceeding through phases as they encounter a new topic. And the implementations might vary. They obviously need to fit the situation and environment. Big emphasis on process skills. So I mentioned these things that hiring managers look for: oral and written communication, teamwork, problem solving, critical thinking, kind of management in terms of the planning, organizing, that type of thing, processing information, and assessment. So all of these skills are embedded by design into these activities. So they play a key role. So I'm going to not going into the detail here because I'm going to have you learn about this by actually doing a Pogil activity, okay? And I remember the first time, just I'm going to warn you, the first time that I went through something like this, it was very frustrating because I had never learned this way. And everything was timed and you weren't like, everybody had a specific role and you had to do just that role. And you have to kind of like, really train students. It can be very, very difficult, right? So students have never had this. So it's very, very tough at first, but once you get them to buy in, it can be very, very successful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share in the chat. I'll create a breakout room for you all to enter, and then I'll pop in like I would. So normally, like let's say I was doing this online. If I was doing it in person, by the way, I'd have, maybe tables of, 3 or 4 students. And I'd go from table to check in and see how they're doing, right? With an online format, it's fairly straightforward that you can put them into breakout rooms and then pop in from one room to another, and do it that way as well. And then the idea is we would look at a model, investigate that model separately, and then come back together and talk about what we experienced and what we learned, right? And then again, this is the instructor's opportunity to make sure that everything is on track. So let me see if I can find this document that I want to share with you, and pop
Are we
it
going
into.
into separate breakout like how many breakout rooms do you want?
So again, we need to be groups of 3 or 4, and if there's only 5, then we'll just have to have one room of 5.
Okay.
Um, 5
So we
is a
just
really
I
bad
will
number.
also volunteer the fact that I am extremely familiar with Pogil and have like done course development with Pogil. So if
Yep.
you want to count me out of the 4 so that everybody else can experience like a true Pogil breakout room with the roles, I'm happy to step back on that because like I've literally helped design a course built around Pogil.
Excellent. So that would leave us with what? Lori, I don't know, are you participating?
I am. I made you a co-host
Okay.
in case anyone comes in that you can let them in, okay?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create the breakout room. First of all, let me pop this into the chat. So um, here's the document you're going to use. Wait, no, don't use that one. Sorry. Let me try again. Please don't use that one. Because I don't want you to modify my document. That should work, I believe. Yes, it does. So yeah, please use the second one. I don't know if I can delete that first post. Yes, I think I can. Let's see. I don't know. Okay, so that one. So if somebody needs to pull that up and share amongst yourselves. Once you pull that document up, you will see. We're gonna have you look at model 1. So, am I sharing that still? I am, right? No, I'm not. So let me share this. So what you're gonna see is this. Okay, and it says introduction to Python, but we won't get there for a bit because the first thing you're going to do is we're going to do a meta activity where you're actually going to learn about the the Pogil rolls, all right? And see, there's a time here, there's a suggested time, and we're going to try to stick to that time as much as possible. All right, so I'll give us till 3:30, and we'll come back and talk about this first meta activity here, which is just a few questions. And I will pop in, to see how you're doing. You can always contact the host, right? If a question does come up in the meantime, but you will quickly learn that only one of you is supposed to be contacting me and asking me a question. Okay. Are we ready to go? Are there any questions on anything before we break out? We're good? Okay. I am going to, let's see, assign. It looks like we only have, so Jay, if you wouldn't mind, wait, did we lose somebody?
I'm
'Cause
still seeing 6 in my chat. So if you take you and me out of it, you got 4.
yeah, okay, yeah. So that's weird because I'm only seeing 3 that I can assign. Let me
You may
try.
not be able to assign Lori because she's host.
That's probably what it is.
Oh,
Yeah,
can I make you host?
Well, no, no, no.
sure,
You
yeah.
can just join into the breakout room
Okay.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
once it's
Okay.
made.
So, yeah, I will just. I think I have you all assigned. So yeah, let's go ahead and open the rooms and let me know if you have questions. Wow, so they're back early. So are we all set to talk about Model 1 or the meta activity?
Yes.
I was going to call it Model
As
0.
the presenter, yes.
Excellent. Look at that. My students struggle so hard. You can imagine like how students really struggle with this. Like I've seen students get really like frustrated, like, I want to say something. It's like you'll get your turn. It's important to learn all of these roles. All right. So normally we hit some key questions. We'd maybe look at a key question or two, but and let's look at the first one. What is the difference between the bold and the italic? So what did you all come up with there?
Oh, Amanda, it says I need to request,
I put the link in the chat for you, Kimberly.
it says I need to request access.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, go ahead, do that.
All right. We have notes. I can't access them.
Up at the top of it, you can just change it to where anybody with the link can see it.
Yeah.
There you go. Done.
Okay.
Now done.
Okay. Can you repeat the question? We were on the third part.
No, yeah, it's just the first one there. What is the difference between the bold and the italics on those roll cards?
Oh, okay. Italics are prompts. Bold is the job.
Yeah, so bold is kind of the role, right? The role responsibilities, right? And then the italics is examples, right? Things that the person might say, think, do, that sort of thing, right? And it's amazing. We just look at those, and it's really obvious, right? When we have a role, and we can just focus on these three things. And by the way, like I teach this to K through 12 teachers, computer science teachers, K through 12 computer science teachers at another institution. And it's really important that you modify these roles for that age group, right? You can easily do this, for third graders, for fourth graders, right? And change, kind of what the names of the roles, make them fun, that type of thing, and change what the responsibilities are, for example, right, and what those prompts look like. So the next one I wanted to discuss was what responsibilities do two or more roles have in common?
We looked at how the presenter and the recorder, they both have a part in the team reaching a consensus, guiding and solidifying the team's consensus. And then also we looked at how the manager and reflector, they keep us focused as far as our discussion.
Yeah, right. So the manager and reflector are making sure that all voices are included, right? And that there's good communication going on, right? And then you said about the consensus between the presenter and the recorder, right? Because both of those are shared. We can even look at manager and presenter. They focus on communication, right? Sometimes in a little bit different context, but you get the idea. And just so we can pick on one person who wasn't going to be doing a whole lot of their role, what was an example of a reflector not doing their job, right? What would that look like? Or what might that look like?
We wrote down if the reflector is not motivating or suggesting improvement to the team members or reflecting on the team performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is such a critical aspect that students, I don't think a lot of times get that ability to do that. And it's an important thing. It's an important skill to have, right? Because if you're part of a team, it's really critical that you self-assess and say, how did we do as a team and what could we be doing better, right? And these are skills that students don't think about. They'll never think about. Hopefully, they will when they get to the workplace, because they'll realize that it's critical in terms of what the productivity is that's going to come out of the teams that they work in. But if they're doing this right and they have some exposure to this beforehand, then they're thinking about it in everything they do when they're working with others, right? It's an often overlooked, I think, aspect. So I'll ask, are there any questions that came up, any topics of discussion from that activity? That would be presenter. That would be you telling whether or not there was any sort of
looking at my team for feedback.
issues that you struggled with,
I mean, it took us a minute to figure out the directions and which what page to be on and how to
Oh
get
my gosh, you blew it out of the park. I went in there and you're all using the technology excellently. It's
one minute to figure that out. Yeah.
unfortunately with students, a lot of times this could take like, 20 minutes and they finally get going. It's like you really have to like, you know, and the frustrating thing is like you want to frustrate them a little bit, especially that first time is it with a simple activity. You cut them off so they understand that, whoa, this time thing is really important. Because it's an important aspect, right? Managing time and making sure that everyone is staying focused as a team. Because then they're getting trained on that skill, right? Which is an important one to have. Our classes, for example, a lot of times, hour and 50 minutes, can fly by, right? And it's important to make the most of that time that students have in the classroom, especially when you overburden them with activities like I do. So what we'll do is we'll separate again. We'll have you go back into the breakout rooms to look at model 1, and I get to get you all, going into doing some coding, which is really exciting to me. I changed this normally, like, we would have like an IDE installed on computers that students were using. I tried to find a good one and I modified this activity a little bit. There may be I didn't do quality control over this, so there might be some issues with it. Hopefully there are not, but if the questions do come up, please make sure you reach out to me, okay? So this says we have 15 minutes as well. I got 3:35, so we'll give you till 10:02, and we'll just do this one, and let me know if questions come up, okay? So go ahead and join your room, and I will pop in and see how you're doing. You can feel free to keep the same roles if you want, or you can switch them. Let me go pop in on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny they're learning about Python programming. It's like it's my way to like torture people. Let's get them to learn some programming.
Well, and the thing that I love about it is that it's like, hey, here's a thing that you've never done. Let's
And
get
you're
you a
doing
crash
it.
course and show you how effective this like learning modality is.
Right.
Because most of us have never had any experience with Python.
Right. Yeah, and it just seems like foreign, right? Something totally
Mhm.
foreign, and all of a sudden, 15 minutes, like you feel like, hey, wait, I just did something. I just learned
Yeah.
something. Like, wow, how did that
No,
go?
and it's very genuinely my favorite part of Pogil.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
plus the other
amazing.
part too is that even when you can't bring in like Pogil in its proper structure, just the mindset of it and the roles
Mhm.
and the fixed time and everything, all of that framework expands out nicely even when you don't have the structured activities for it.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Yep. And a lot of times even I'll just take parts of the framework and utilize it in courses if like the approach, is not going to fit perfectly in a certain
Yeah.
classroom environment. Like for example, like another important or valuable skill for students to learn is pair programming. So where they're just two students, and bringing some elements of a Pogil exercise into that context, I think has worked really well for me. And hopefully my students. It seems like
You're like, it's
they
great
do.
for me.
It seems like they learn, which is critically
I
important.
mean,
And
that's the goal. At the end of the day, it's why we're in the job.
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. As my one of my PhD chair used to say, it's like a lot of us teachers, there's a common saying that we teach how we were taught, but it's more we teach how we wish we were taught.
We found that Lori is what? What did she say about me?
You missed what you finished with, Amanda.
What did you say about me, Amanda? You're on mute.
Oh, I said, what we learned. I said, we learned Lori's bossy.
That did make me laugh.
I'm just as bossy as you are. We're both
Assertive
alphas.
manager.
All right, so I had to modify these questions some, but we saw in the model that was presented there, right? The output window was, where did we say that was?
What question are we on? What number are we on?
The first one.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Oh, A. The second one on the bottom.
Yeah, so the bottom, right? So that was the output window. And then what about the editor window where you type commands?
That was the first top window.
Obviously on the top. And then you saw the name. Were you able to find the name of the file in the editor?
Hello.py or pi, P-Y.
That's right. Hello.py. I see these are programmers in waiting right here. That's fantastic. Then next you were asked to identify the number of lines corresponding to the program. So how many lines are in the program?
7.
Yeah,
right?
technically it's 6. That last line is just kind of, I hit enter after I was done, right? But yeah,
Okay.
that's
we
good.
we weren't sure.
It's good. How about how many lines in the number of lines in the output of the program?
We answered 4 with a really big question mark.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about that one, right? Where when Amanda typed her name, or whatever name, Monty, that's input, right? Because the user is giving, that data to the program, right? So that's input, and then output is what we see as a result of that input, or prompting us to generate input, things like that. The symbol at the start of the line, was that right? The symbol at the start of the line of program text that was not displayed. What was that symbol?
The pound sign, or also
Very good. Don't say hashtag. No, don't say hashtag. It's a pound sign. That's correct. Yes.
If you want to be even more pedantic, it's an octothorpe.
It's that
What?
too. Yeah.
I never heard that.
Yeah.
It's
been a
got 8
while.
legs.
So in
correct.
programming, they call it a pound sign still?
It's still a pound sign. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
As far as I'm
I'm going to ask
concerned.
my class tomorrow if they know, if I ask that.
A lot of mine did not know what that was. It's like, so I have to educate them. And how far did we get on this one?
We got to about
You were at number 5, weren't you?
8.
Yeah.
So
We did start
for
at 8 too.
Mhm.
Yeah, we just skipped number 5
What-
and then went to
what
the
was
other
the
ones.
purpose? What was the purpose of a comment line? I
Those
want
are
to talk about this one because I heard you talking about it.
they're the commands. Is that right?
The comment line that started with a pound sign. What do you think the purpose of that was? Did that show up on the output? Did it affect the program?
I'll be honest, I feel like I really have to turn on my left side brain for this.
Wasn't it the command?
That started with a pound sign? If you look at the example that was given,
It's the command in the editor box. Like
it
telling
said
the program what to do.
the first one says what? It says line number 1 says what?
Oh, it's an intro. Welcome.
It says display a welcome message, doesn't it? And then the one in line number 4 says what?
Give the user a
user
compliment.
Give the user a compliment. Did the program generate that? It never did, right? So
No.
why didn't it? Because
Oh, it did. It said Amanda's a great name.
right, but that's because you
Plugged it in.
have in line 5, I'm sorry, line 6, you have print name. There's no pound in front of that, right? So that's
Oh.
not a comment. So the
So-
comment starts with the
Title?
pound sign. right?
Well,
It says comment line starts with a pound sign, right? Yours says that. Number 4A.
Comment, compliment, give you the user a compliment.
Yeah,
Pound, give the user a compliment. Yes.
right. So that never showed up in the output, right? So what do you suppose the purpose of that is? Why is it even there? It never even affected the program.
Oh, it's a command. Tell it what to do.
It's
right?
Background note.
no, the command is actually what follows it.
is it
'Cause look-
Oh,
is it like something that delineates what's going to happen after it?
Yeah,
Sort of
it's
like a
just
header?
Say what you
describing
said
the
again,
purpose
Kimberly.
of the behavior of the code, right? So it's
What's that?
describing the purpose of the code or the behavior of the code. So
It's
does the
the
user see
background
that, do you think?
No,
No, right? Who sees that? The programmer,
programmer.
right? The person writing the program. And why would a user or why would a programmer put a comment in there?
So that they know what's
Question.
coming, like what they're going to be doing.
Right, because maybe they're going to look at that code like 6 months from now and go, what was I thinking? Or the programmer quits because they find a better job, because that's what programmers do. They find a better job somewhere else, and someone else has to take over that code. And now that person has to look at that code and try to figure out what the original person was thinking, right? So that's the purpose then, is for the programmer to document kind of what they're doing. Right. And I want to talk about this one. I know we're like running out of time. The blank line. I heard someone say the blank line was nothing, right?
yes. Lori said that.
No purpose. That's what
Has
we
no purpose. Does it really not have a purpose?
I mean,
If I didn't have that
separates-
blank line in line 3, how would the code look?
Well, it separates each function, like each part of it.
Okay.
So for the programmer, it's helpful, right? But
Absolutely.
I've seen lots of things where there are no spaces in programming.
It makes the code easier to
Read.
absolutely, right? So it improves readability, which is a really important aspect of software engineering. So readability is a big thing. So, okay, so look, we were able to start a Pogil activity here, Python, right? No previous experience. And you can see how inquiry learning works, right? I don't think any of you had any experience with Python or using even an editor, maybe.
HTML.
I had
HTML is
MySpace.
not really a programming language, but it is
Does MySpace count?
it's a scripting language. What's that?
Does MySpace count?
MySpace? Well, you had to do some sort of programming there, didn't you, back then? Yeah.
That's all the experience I have.
That or Minecraft, like I hear students telling me, oh, I did some of this in Minecraft, and it's fantastic. But you can see how these types of skills are translatable, right? But the whole idea here is you don't have to have any sort of background, and that's why Pogil is, if it's done properly, it's really, really powerful, because you don't have to have any sort of prerequisite content knowledge. You look at a model and then you base your learning off that model, and then you get to engage the model. And the idea is next you'd move into more critical thinking type questions, right? And then end up with an application like, okay, now you've seen how this works. Now you create something that, prompts the user. You create a program that prompts the user for something and then tell them something about what they told you, right? And then all of a sudden students are creating. So that's how Pogil kind of works in a nutshell. I love it. I use it to, different levels to various extents in my courses, and hope you give it a shot. So Jay and I were talking. Lori, I think I'd mentioned to you that what would be really great is to get an actual workshop put on with certified Pogil instructors, and that becomes easier to do if you have a lot of faculty interested in attending, because becomes worth it, right? To bring those people over. I think I sent you a link to
You
their
did, and
site.
Jay just sent it again, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
open it, and then I'm gonna I'll bookmark it. I really like this, Simon, because a lot of times in English we do the same thing where we give roles, and we might even define what they are, but I like the questions at the beginning, like, how do you know the person isn't doing their job? And what are some of the overlaps in the jobs and so forth? And we don't really learn that. And then I like how you give I could even see this doing with like thesis and topic sentences and having them look at different ones and so forth and
Yeah.
going from there. And sorry, my phone is ringing and it never rings.
You can have an example of, a really good topic sentence, hopefully first, and right then give examples of bad ones and start to
Right.
say, well, what's different about these and what makes them not as good as the other one, right? And that's where students are building that
Right.
learning, right?
And that's that inquiry where then they're doing the work themselves and figuring it out themselves.
Correct.
Builds the
Yep.
knowledge.
They're learning by building their
Yeah.
knowledge based on observing that model. Jay
Yeah.
has something.
No, so when I used Pogil back at UCLA, we literally devoted the entire first discussion section for just meta engagement with Pogil, right? What are the roles? How do you use them? And then because it was a major problem, we also like tied it into like, all right, let's just talk about how to make an argument now, right?
Mhm.
And so you don't even have to have it be necessarily like on your content. Spending even more time in like a discussion section or a classroom setting on the meta activity caused a lot of buy-in from the students that let it be successful across the entire quarter there.
Yep. I've done that in the past as well. It's, weighing how much time you have, how much stuff you have to get through. And in this example, it was just like, I'm going to use this like shortened version of this to really get your feet wet and then, throw you into the fire of having to use it, and seeing how that worked. But
It's hard for someone like me because I like talking and answering the questions. So when Kimberly had to do the feedback, I was like, I want to say the answer. And so I think that's a good thing,
yeah, because I tell students all the time, it's really, and some students don't want to talk. Some students hate talking, right? But it's an important skill to develop as well, right? So they have to have that. I've had students get really frustrated. It's like, well, I want to be able to talk, like I said, but it's like learning to respect those roles, each role, right? And really embed yourself into that role so that you become good at it.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think that's where students then really are able to sell themselves in interviews when they can bring up those types of skills in the context of what they've been learning, then that's going to sell them to a hiring manager, right?
I'm assuming this is really only good for like face-to-face or Zoom kind of classes. Like you can't really do the same asynchronously.
My asynchronous didn't work, it had to be synchronous.
Yeah.
So the one time I've tried to use it in an asynchronous class is I told students they had to meet synchronously, and that was not a good idea because students got mad and said, well, wait a minute, this is supposed to be a synchronous class. I was like, well, I guess they're right. So I guess, I can't force them to do it. So like in that Python class, for example, I have Pogil exercises that are there, but I've had to make them optional, because it's an asynchronous class. And then I only get, I got like a discussion forum meetup where students can, figure out what times and days they can meet. But unfortunately, what's ended up happening is I'll have one student that does those because they want to learn more. And, you can't do Pogil by yourself, right? So the student is learning stuff, but the rest of them are like, yeah, I don't want to do that. That's optional. I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that to get my grade. And I'll go through it and I give them feedback on what they've submitted, right? But it doesn't count for points, which I think Amanda likes, right? So that's one thing I've implemented that. So the idea is that they're only scored based on their assessments in the course and mastering the learning outcomes. And that class actually, the Python class actually prepares students to take a certification exam. So that's the whole goal of the class, is to prepare them to take and pass the Python certification exam. So it's very exam focused. It's not project focused at all. But I have Pogil Labs in there to give students kind of another approach and, really learn the content more if they want to.
Well, I think this is really great, and I appreciate you doing this, Simon. And I don't know how doing the recording of this. Like, I think people really miss it because they're not
right.
You're not.
And I think I mentioned that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the way that it works.
But it's
but you can always share like an example. There's like YouTube examples of a Pogil, like 7-minute snips. There's one of I think it's a chemistry class if I remember right. That I've shared in the past when I think I did one of these a couple of years back or 3 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, that might be a good idea to sort of cut this and then put a YouTube video in with it or something like that. So the
Yeah.
instructions at the beginning. But I really enjoy this, and I could see this used in all sorts of disciplines, not just your discipline. So, and I think,
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely,
it's
all over the
fabulous.
place. And
So anyway, we'll look into
I think
it.
English would be great. It would be fantastic.
It would be great because we do stuff like this, but for me, this is more focused, and I'm sort of all over the place. That if I have something that's really focused, and it's very helpful. So anyway, well, it is after 4, so thank you so much, Simon. I so appreciate this, and I'll look into the Pogil thing, and maybe we can get some more buy-in, and so we have a good group who might be interested in maybe a face-to-face thing or something. So.
Yeah,
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
And
no
everyone have a
problem.
nice evening.
It was great hanging out with you all.
Hi, everybody.